Hi, my name is Teresa. Today we're going to talk about when the temporary become permanent. Let's go! Hi, my name is Teresa. I'm an international keynote speaker traveling the world talking about business culture and mindset. I'm also the founder and CEO of 30-Minute MBA. We reimagine the workplace through actionable learning and cultural design, all part of future work. And today we're going to talk about when temporary becomes permanent, especially in the workplace. So take a moment and think about those conversations you might have had over your career. When people tell you that there's no point of doing that, we have always done it this way. Or why would we change something that works? Change is not necessarily something that comes natural for all of us. But we want you to take you on a journey. 3 stories. And we want you to see if you can relate. First of all, let's talk about this concept of that everyone in the workplace are supposed to be larks. First of all, let's just debunk that from the start and say that it's not true. We actually have a video on body clock that we link down below on how to live in line with your body clock to really boost your performance and have a high level of well-being and achieve more as a benefit of that, of course, as well. But imagine the 9 o'clock meeting. Everyone is supposed to be in the meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Regardless what your body clock is. And why is this? Yeah, because you need to kickstart the week, or it's always been like this. Why would you ever change a working concept? Why would you change kicking off the week by removing that or even delaying that? Because it works so perfectly for all of us, but does it? Probably not. Because how many times have you arrived to the meeting being super stressed and you had a really rough morning because you needed to get a lot of things in and you're rushing to the office, and then you get right into the meeting and you're not really fully on yet. And it has nothing to do with your performance or ability. It has everything to do with the concept of just staying in a format that only works for a few of us. This doesn't mean that we should never have meetings. Depending on your company, you might have a lot of them or few. But it's all about looking at, why do we have this 9 o'clock meeting? And is it really the best possible way of boosting all our high achievers and high potential in the workplace? Or is there a better way of doing it? And more importantly, are all our people larks? If they are, great. If they're not, maybe not as great. And of course, there might be some areas where we need to compromise a little bit. But compromising on some things doesn't mean that we should accept something that's been around forever. The 9 o'clock meeting works for larks. It doesn't work as well for owls. And if you want the best performance from your owls, maybe the 9 o'clock meeting is not the best way of starting any day. I remember a couple of years ago when I worked with a client. I was a management consultant at the time. I started my first business when I was 17 within that space. And I've been working with clients for over 15 years. So this is a couple of years ago. It was a retail company, and I was at the headquarters working with the CFO and the CEO. But I also had the liberty of going around and working with different departments on a couple of projects. And what was fascinating was how many people that were loyal and passionate about this company. The reason why that was fascinating was that the culture wasn't great. They have lost their purpose, they lost their values, and it was almost like a toxic environment. But you still had some people that really cared about the company, really cared about the brand, and were trying to do their best every day. But the problem was that this toxic culture, of course, spreads, and it's really hard to drive change in that kind of environment. And this is just one of those stories. So I was working with the IT department on a project, and these guys were really passionate about what they were doing. It was only 4 guys, and most of them have been with the company for over 10 years. Some of them have worked themselves up from lower positions and then trained themselves on their nights in order to be able to work in IT. So they were really cool, and they were really caring about the business. But one of the guys, every Friday, He needed to sit in front of his computer and press a button. Yes, I literally mean sitting at his desk, press a button up and down for 8 hours. Because if he didn't do that, the company would lose 100,000 euros in invoicing, or in revenue basically, for that week. So this was a weekly task about sending invoices in a specific way. And we can get into why that even was there in the first place. That's a different story. But let's just focus on their suggestion here. So their idea, being great at their jobs and caring about the company, sort of wanted to build a better process for this. The idea of having one guy, a really talented guy, sitting and pressing a button for 8 hours every week, that's really great use of time, resources, potential, all of that. So they suggested that to build a program to do this. It's not terribly complicated, but building the program would take about a week. So they came to the CFO with this proposal, like, okay, this is what we're doing. We think this is a better way, and then we can use this resource, this great developer, for something else, something a lot more advanced and more value created to the company. And I had the opportunity to sit in this meeting, and I was kind of blown away with the reaction. So it wasn't the reaction of, this is great, what a great possibility. Because of course, if you would do the math, after just a couple of weeks, all the time that this guy is spending at work will be bonus. Basically, the investment of having this person pressing the button would be repaid in a couple of weeks, if you look at it from a financial perspective. But more importantly, there is so much drive and potential in this guy. So the fact that he was given this kind of task that wasn't necessary, of course, affected his ability of being a high achiever at work. He started off as a high achiever, but after a while, he lost a bit of that. Not because he wasn't a high achiever at heart, but just because the environment didn't allow him to use his resources and his potential in a good way. But the heartbreaking thing was that the CFO basically told him that you are not allowed to build this program. We want you to continue with the way you are doing now. We know that that works. It's been working for years. And why would we change something that works? Which is, of course, heartbreaking. And for the record, no, this company is not really going well. Surprise, surprise. Now, 5-6 years later. I wasn't there for that long. I was there for a specific project and got the opportunity of seeing what happens in a company with a toxic culture and what happens to the high achievers when they are not allowed to even build a program that could be great for morale, for profit, and for potential. But it was an interesting insight in some companies. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of amazing companies, so this was a completely new experience for someone like me, to actually see this live and to see that this is actually occurring. So they had a temporary solution that became permanent, because of course when they started this, the idea was that, of course, we are only going to have this guy pressing the button until we fix the problem. Another temporary problem that usually becomes permanent is how we structure things. It can be how we structure our folders. So just imagine how much time you are looking for certain things every day. It can be emails, it can be folders, it can be documents. How much time are you actually searching for it? And of course, we have better computers today and we can search for things if the index is right. But even the fact that we can't easily find things, of course, makes it harder to do our job. And it can, of course, disturb our flow, which is not great. But imagine when you set that up, you would just temporarily set up this file structure in a certain way, or just temporarily save this document on the desktop and then come back to it later, right? And just temporarily leave the email in your inbox because you're gonna come back to that later. And if you do this, of course we all do on occasion, but the problem is that if we let temporary become permanent in multiple areas, especially from a cultural perspective, it's going to be a lot of issues for no good reason. And I also remember A couple of years ago, I was sitting with a client, and one of the people in the room really needed some help to get a design program installed on her computer. This wasn't a big deal at all, and it would take about 5 minutes to do. But there were another guy in the room that sort of felt that, why do we need to do this right now? You know, can't we just do it later? But the woman was familiar with this idea of temporary become permanent, so she insisted that, no, let's do it now, so then it's fixed, so I can fix these things later, to make sure that we actually have a program I can work with. Since I work with this design program every day, so it's kind of a problem not having a working program on my computer. Because how many times have you heard that I will do this later? Let's not do it now. Let's not fix this problem right now. Let's fix it later. Let's put it off for a little bit. We need to redefine the definition of what works. Because there are so many things that have a tendency to creep in to become permanent if we're not careful. Even thriving business cultures, even with high achievers everywhere, there might be moments where you're tempted to say that little word. Let's do it later. But if you do that, make sure that you put in your calendar somewhere that you actually address it at some point. Because this idea of later might become never. And some of those things are not that important or might be a quick fix, but some of them will grow over time, especially if this is something that implements a lot of people. Because we need to look at the opportunity cost here. What is the opportunity cost of working with temporary solutions in a permanent way? How many solutions, how many things around you right now were initially designed to be temporary, just for now, you know? Not for a long time, but just for now. We're just going to do this right now, and then we're going to fix it later. How many things like that are in your surrounding? And does this help you increase your performance, boost your productivity, makes you feel amazing every day? Or is there something in your environment where you feel that let's change this? Let's stop with this temporary idea, because most things don't become temporary. Most things turns into permanent, more or less permanent anyway. So our challenge to you is to look at your surrounding and come up with 3 things that you believe is something that initially was temporary but now is permanent. That is not really helping the values of the company, the culture of the company, the mission, whatever it is, or even help the people. And take a step back and see, how can we solve this better? Not later, but how can we solve it better now? And what does this actually mean? What's the upside of solving this? How much time, money, resources, potential will we save by changing the temporary to something that is just temporary? Removing the permanent from the concept of temporary. So, we also have a gift for you. It's a 30-day challenge. It's called the Futuristic You, and you can download it in the description box below. We also have it as a physical book, as you can see, but you get it for free as a PDF down below. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Share with us how you are implementing this strategy. How are you taking on this challenge? We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. And as always, achieve greatness. Bye.